What's up, 7th grade? Mr. Agnos here. This is lesson 4-3. So this video will be for homework assignments 4-3K and 4-3G. We're going to add positive and negative fractions and decimals. So we're turning up the heat a little bit. All right, it says complete the steps. And this whole page is kind of confusing. What they want us to do here is they want us to solve this problem right here. 3/5 plus negative 1/5. So instead of doing, nice integers, now we're actually working with fractions. And remember, if we're going to add or subtract fractions, they have to have the same denominator. Well, in this case, both of these fractions have a denominator of 5. Okay, the denominator is the number on the bottom. The numerator is on the number on the top. So this method works because we have the same denominator. If we had different denominators here, then we have to find a common denominator. That's a whole extra step. Okay. The first thing it says to do is rewrite 3/5. Well, we can break 3/5 into pieces. I can go up to my box here and I can say, well, 3/5 is equal to 2/5 plus 1/5, right? If I have 2/5, I add another fifth, I now have 3/5. So they had us break 3/5 into different parts, right? A 2/5 and a 1/5. And the reason that they did that is look at what we have now. I have a positive 1/5 here, and I have a negative 1/5 there. And remember what we learned about in previous videos about additive inverses, that when we have a positive and negative version of a number, they sum to 0, right? So by breaking 3/5 apart like that, we're able to create a pair of additive inverses. So on the second step, it says use the associative property of addition. The associative property of addition just says, hey, when you're adding a bunch of things together, it really doesn't matter what order you add them in, right? If I have 2 plus 4 plus 5, right, I can do the 4 plus 5 first, or I can do the 2 plus 4 first. It doesn't matter. My end result, either way that I do it, is going to be 11, right? So basically what we're doing is we're just moving the parentheses. So for step 2, I still have my 2/5 right there, but now I've just grouped the 1/5 plus the negative 1/5 together. So there's my 1/5, and there's my negative 1/5. So again, I want you paying attention to this part right here. The whole point of these first two steps was to create this pair of additive inverses, because we know that these are going to sum to 0. So when we get to step 3, I still have my 2/5, but now 1/5 plus a negative 1/5 is equal to 0. Anything plus 0 is just that thing. So our final answer is going to be 2/5. All right? So the idea here is, hey, if we can break apart one of the numbers to create an additive inverse, then we can quickly eliminate that, and whatever we're left with is going to be our answer. So let's go ahead and check. Great job. All right. I will probably do another question like this on a homework help video. Put 2 slide 1. All right, so that's one type of question you're going to see. Okay, so here we have 2 problems. I'll try and knock both these out. I'll start with the one with the fractions over here. Notice this one is actually a little bit different than the previous one. And the reason it's different is because both of the fractions are negative. So it's like I have a bunch of negatives, and then I'm adding a bunch more negatives. So really I just have to add these two together and make it all negative, because they're all negatives. So when both of your numbers are negative, and in this case they're fractions with the same denominator, right? We both have a denominator of 4. I'm going to rewrite this whole problem over a denominator of 4. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 3 plus negative 9 all over a denominator of 4. Well, now I just need to add my negatives together, right? And I can use the process that we learned previously, right? If I have 3 negatives and I have 9 more negatives, I have 12 negatives. You could also use a number line, right? You would start at number 3, and then you would move 9 units in the negative direction. Either way, you're going to end up with negative 12 on the top. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and write this on the far left. So I'll put my equal sign over here. Negative 3 plus negative 9 is negative 12 all over 4. All right, so this is the answer, but it can be simplified, right? We can simplify this. These both have a common factor of 4. So if I divide the top by 4 and the bottom by 4, negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3, right? I have a negative divided by a positive. That's where the negative sign comes from. 12 divided by 4 is 3. On the bottom, 4 divided by 4, any number divided by itself is equal to 1. All right, when you have a fraction over 1, it's just equal to that number. Okay, with decimals, we're going to use the same strategy that we just used on the previous problem from the previous slide. We're going to take negative 8.3 and we're going to break it into pieces so that one of the pieces is negative 5.1, so that we have a pair of additive inverses. So I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to say 5.1 plus, all right, so 8.3. So let's see, 5.1 plus 3.2. So I need a negative 5.1 plus a negative 3.2. And I kind of got a lot of parentheses going on here. Okay, let's think about what I did here and why this is going to work out nicely. Negative 5.1 plus negative 3.2. If I take 5.1 negatives and I add 3.2 more negatives, I'm going to get 8.3 negatives, right? So this whole expression right here is equal to negative 8.3. But what I've done is I've created a pair of additive inverses. Because now I have a negative 5.1 here and a positive 5.1 here. So I can regroup. I can say, okay, 5.1, and I'm going to regroup now, plus the negative 5.1. So that's one group, plus the negative 3.2. All right, well, we know that additive inverses sum to 0. So 5.1 plus negative 5.1, all of this just becomes 0, plus my negative 3.2. Well, any number plus 0 is equal to just that number, so we know that our final answer is going to be negative 3.2. All right, so same idea as before. We split our number to create a pair of additive inverses. All right, I'm going to try and get through one more problem. We're at 9 minutes. I'm capped at 15, so I'll try and get through one more, and I'll probably make a homework help video as well where I go over 2 problems from the actual homework. All right. This one has a little animation that goes with it, so bear with me. What this little guy is doing is he's planting a seed underground. So he's digging a hole below the ground. So because it's below the ground, we know the depth of the seed here is going to be represented by a negative number, right? We're going down beneath the ground. And then the seed is going to grow into a beautiful flower. Well, because it's growing, that's going to be represented by a positive number, all right? And so they actually give us the equation they want us to solve right here. It says find the sum negative 3 1/2 plus 15 3/4 inches, right? So this negative 3 1/2 right here, that represents the distance below the ground. And then the plus 15 3/4 inches, that is not how tall the flower is above the ground. That's how tall the flower is going all the way into the ground, all the way down to the seed, which was down, well, that's the wrong thing. All the way down to the seed, which was way down here. So what we're trying to figure, it says, what does the sum represent? Well, what we're trying to figure out, what that sum represents is how tall the flower is above the ground. We're actually trying to find the distance from the ground to the top of the flower, right? So if I add these two together, I'm going to get the length of this green line right here. Okay. So there are different ways to approach this. Since these are written as fractions here, I'm going to go ahead and convert these into decimals, because I think these decimals are actually pretty easy to work with, right? 1/2 is just 0.5, and 3/4 is 0.75. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. I'm going to say negative 3.5. Okay, that's 3 1/2 inches, plus 15 point, and then again 3/4 is 7.5, and we want to find out what this is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use this idea of additive inverses. I'm going to break this number apart so that I have 3.5 plus something, so that I can cancel out those 3.5s. So I'll go ahead and rewrite this. Negative 3.5 plus. All right. So I know I'm going to need a positive 3.5 here to cancel out this 3.5. So then the question is, well, 3.5 plus what equals 15.75? So you can go ahead and use a calculator and do some subtraction here. I think it is 12.25. So just to be clear on what happened here, if I take 3.5 plus 12.25, that is going to equal 15.75. Okay? You can kind of think of it as like making change. You go into the store, you gave the clerk a $10 bill, and they gave you a 5 and 5 ones. They're worth the same, right? So 15.75 is worth the same as these two numbers added together. We just made change. Okay. So now I'm going to regroup. So I'll say negative 3.5 plus 3.5. Right? I regrouped, plus my 12.25 equals what? There's a decimal. Okay, we know that additive inverses sum to 0. So this is 0 plus 12.25. Any number plus 0 is just itself. So 12.25 inches. That is the distance from the top of the flower to the ground. Okay. Again, one thing I like about the videos is you guys can pause and rewind and watch as many times as you need to. These questions are challenging the first time through. We're going to get at least 2 shots at these, right? You're going to have the K assignment and the G assignment. And I'm going to make probably a follow-up video where I go over a couple of more of these problems, okay? The goal isn't to get it perfect the first time. The goal is to try them, make some mistakes, learn from our mistakes, and by the end of this week, be in a position where we can solve these every time. Okay, hit me up in the comments if you have questions. Ask me questions in class. Send me an email, and I hope this video was helpful.